What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about and ranking Dofi's top executives. I know that Dressrosa has been over for a while, so it's kind of a weird topic, but somebody suggested this to me, and for one thing, I'm obviously a huge fan of Dofi and Dressrosa, and I just thought it was a pretty cool idea, so I decided I'm going to do it, and just keep in mind, I will not be including Corazon because we really did not get to see much from him, and he wasn't really a part of the crew since he was kind of like a traitor, so I don't know, I'm just going to keep him out of it. I'm just going to go with the 4 that we know a significant amount about. Also, before we do get into that, I would like to mention at the beginning of my video, because clearly it's not that effective at the end when I'm doing my outro thing, I would just like everyone to know right now that I do in fact live stream. I think a lot of people are not aware of this. I pretty much just sit and have a video game in the background or something while I discuss One Piece with people, you know, that are in the live stream. There's usually like 20-ish people there, so there's a considerable amount of discussion. A lot of the time I have one of my friends or something in there too, so it's, you know, it's not just me talking, it sounds like an actual discussion is going on. It's a lot of fun. I'd like to see a lot more people there. I know that if you're subscribed to someone, it doesn't really necessarily notify you of things when they happen immediately, so the best thing you can do if you do want to see these live streams is to click on the notification bell next to the subscribe button. Maybe you don't want to be notified when every video comes out, but that's really the only advice I can give you. YouTube kind of sucks in that regard, so yeah, if you do want to get in on my live streams, make sure you do hit that notification bell. And yeah, that's it. Let's get straight into the shit. So starting at the bottom here, we have Trebol. And I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with this because of the whole thing where it kind of was implied that he might even be the strongest of the executives. But I just, did we really see anything from him? I mean, sure, he was placed in charge of protecting Sugar, but I think what they were specifically talking about was just his, like, awareness, his ability to, like, perceive enemies. Maybe he has very strong observation haki. He has a very good reaction time, pretty much. He was pretty much the most ideal person from protecting her from an assassination, so he was good at countering that. But his actual, like, 1v1 combat abilities, I don't know if I'm really seeing it. Like, what was he able to really do? He pretty much had almost no actual abilities shown when he was facing off with Dofi against Law and Luffy. He was kind of just used to toy with them, I guess. I mean, like, if Luffy was caught off guard, he could just take him and throw him away, but like, it didn't actually do any damage or anything. He was pretty much just used as like a way to pretty much torture Law, you know? I think that's a good way of putting it. He does have a devil fruit, but it is weaker than most, I would say. I mean, it's with the mucus fruit, right? Like, what does that really do? It has the ability of being sticky, I guess, and like I said, that's how he was able to, like, throw Luffy out of the way and whatnot, but that's nothing even close to crazy. It is also flammable, and I'm sure there's many great ways he could use that. But explosives are just not that effective in the One Piece world, especially just when comparing, you know, him to the other executives. I don't really think he stands a chance. I think when you really think about it, despite the fact that he is like the right-hand man of Dofi, that was more of a position he was given because he's kind of always been there from the beginning. If you see my video talking about Trebol and his extreme value in the Donquixote family, then I think you'll understand more of what I'm talking about. I just don't think that he got there because of necessarily his combat abilities, but more of the role he played in the story. And next, in what I consider a big step up, I have Diamante, and I don't consider him to be significantly weaker than Trebol or Vergo. Vergo maybe, possibly, but I was actually kind of really debating between Pica and Diamante. It's really hard for me to say because he had a pretty good battle against Robin and Kyros, right? It was pretty much a 1v1 between Kyros and Diamante, but as far as I've seen, Kyros is a very powerful character. He was, I would say, by far the most powerful character from Dressrosa up until they were invaded, right? He was the leader of the military, and he only really got that position because he had shown that he was a complete monster of pure power. Now, I'm not going to say that, you know, he's anywhere near Zoro's level, of course. That's absurd to even think that. I don't think Diamante is either, but I think that they were pretty even, and Kyros is very strong, so that must say a decent amount about Diamante. He also, of course, has a devil fruit, as all the top executives besides Vergo do, and I think that it's actually a lot better than most people think. Most people seem to think that it just kind of sucks, it doesn't really do anything, it's only used for very specific scenarios, but I don't know. I mean, I think one ability specifically can be used in almost every scenario, which is the one where he can actually use it on the entire area around him, which makes it a very difficult environment for pretty much anyone he's facing, right? Like, I mean, the only way you can really get around that is if you can fly, which is kind of hilarious considering there's so many people in Dressrosa that could fly. Really only Sabo and Dofi, but that's not really the point. The majority of people are going to be on the ground when they're fighting, and that would be a pretty huge disadvantage to just have to deal with out of nowhere. That you can't really argue that it doesn't affect you, right? I mean, that's at least something out of nowhere. That's definitely beneficial, and he seems to be pretty good with the sword. He was able to deal with Kyros quite well. I mean, in a true 1v1, I really don't know what the outcome would be. I would probably at this point bet on Kyros, but I could definitely see it going either way. When you combine the endless creative ways he could use his Devil Fruit with his pretty decent match against Kyros, I think he's a pretty formidable opponent. I think he is most certainly above Trebol, and he is not that far behind Pica. So then, of course, next on my list has to be Pica, right? That's for sure. I think Pica is very powerful. I think he has an extremely overpowered Devil Fruit, but I don't think we necessarily saw him actually use it that well or anything. I think that he got completely smoked by Zoro, which isn't necessarily fair because I consider Zoro to be just about on par with Luffy, so he never really stood a chance in the first place. Luffy, you know, meanwhile is taking on Dofi, doing a pretty good job, so Pica never stood a chance, because Pica, of course, doesn't even compare to Dofi. I just think that he has a really overpowered Devil Fruit, which he did not use that well. He did use it in some interesting ways, which would be good for taking on mass amounts of people, I suppose, which he kind of did. But then he would face Zoro in his giant form, and I just don't really see how that's effective. I mean, like I've explained many times, it's been shown quite clearly in the One Piece world that just being massive, being a giant or whatever, doesn't really ever give you that huge of an advantage. A lot of the time it's quite the opposite, where they can't deal with people so much smaller than them because they're way too fast. It's like when we try to swat a fly out of the air. Sure, we can do it, but it's not that easy, right? I mean, it's like they have this huge advantage on us from being so small. Although his Devil Fruit is overpowered, like I said, I don't think he uses that well. The reason I do put him above Diamante is because we did have a little bit of a showing with his Haki. He was able to use it on his entire body, and he seemed quite confident in its abilities. Of course, again, he did not stand a chance against Zoro, but that's not really fair for Pica. And we did not really see so much of a Haki showing from Diamante, so I mean, of course he was using it, but I just think that there was a little bit of a point being made that maybe Pica had a little bit better of Haki, so it's really close between those two. But with the fact that he could theoretically be using his Devil Fruit so much better, and that I think he might have slightly better Haki, I gotta put Pica above Diamante for this one. And then lastly, of course, at the top, and I don't think too many people are in disagreement with this one, I think it's pretty obvious, Vergo was a complete animal, right? I mean, this guy, of course, he also was able to use full body Haki, and I don't think that that's too impressive. It kind of seemed to be made a point to an extent, but I don't know. I think if you can use armament Haki, you could probably generally use it on your entire body. Probably just take some kind of endurance or something. But yeah, I mean, he went up against Law, and while Law did seem to be acting kind of weird, maybe he could have not had such a difficult time with him, and he, you know, did have his heart hostage. That does make it difficult for Law. He really was beating the shit out of him. I mean, he was clearly moving way too fast for Law to deal with him. He was shown to have extreme physical strength, so I think he's just a real monster. I mean, I think that I think there's a massive gap between him and the other executives. Of course, I think there's a decent gap between Trebol and the middle two as well, but I think that this is the real gap. Like, I think he was on a completely different level than the rest of them. That's probably why he was the Corazon. He was the guy going out on missions. He was working for the Marines and whatnot, because he just was so powerful. I mean, he could be trusted like that. He didn't need to be just sitting in Dressrosa doing nothing. He needed to be the guy actually taking action, because he was complete powerhouse. I'm not saying I see any situation where Vergo would have beaten Law, since Law's Devil Fruit is so overpowered, and just generally he is a very powerful character, right? I mean, I consider one of the stronger members of the worst generation, so yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of like the Pica versus Zoro situation. It's not exactly fair. I think it's significantly closer, since I think both Zoro is stronger than Law, and Vergo is stronger than Pica, significantly. So it's much closer of a battle. But I think Law would win pretty much every time. And I do think it would be a decent battle, pretty much like the one we saw. Sure, Law maybe be able to just one-shot him, but Vergo kind of was, you know, at the end of the fight here, he was kind of exhausted, so it might have been difficult for him to maintain strong enough hockey to be able to stop Law's attack. So I think that's what it really comes down to. I think they're pretty close in power, and for him to be close to Law in power, that's a pretty big deal. So yeah, I think he definitely takes the cake here with being at the top of this ranking. I don't think too many people would disagree with that. If anything, I would think they disagree with the gap that I'm claiming there is. Maybe I'm saying he's too close to Law in strength, but I think that would kind of be fair anyway, because I mean, it was kind of built up like that, right? He was the guy who caused all these problems with Corazon and whatnot. He's the one that completely screwed Law just by fate. It just sucks. So I think that they would have to kind of lead up to this really epic battle between them, and it kind of was there. So I think that that's very fair placement. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about this video, if you're enjoying these ranking videos, other ideas you have for things I could rank, different versus battles, all the normal stuff that I say. Don't forget to hit that notification button. Okay, I want to see more people in my live streams. It's a decent amount, but I've been going up crazy in subs, and for some reason the live streams are all about the same size. Kind of weird. Not really a fan of that. It's really disappointing every time, so I'd like to see more of you guys in there. Make sure to do that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.